The first reason that rural development is very important, especially in the context of the New Urban Agenda for Habitat 3, is that if you look at the objective of the agenda, it's very ambitious, which we appreciate. It aims to eliminate hunger and poverty and leave no person behind. So in this context, firstly, it's important to bear in mind that poverty is still overwhelmingly rural. The World Bank estimates 78% of the poor people are still in rural areas, and World Food Programme estimates 75% of hunger is rural. So even though we're seeing urbanization and we're seeing slightly larger numbers of urban poor people, we need to remember that if we want to eliminate poverty, it can't be done without investment in rural areas, about the connections between rural and urban areas. So the first, the most obvious but not the only connection is obviously food. Much of the food in the world is produced in rural areas by smallholder farmers, in some countries up to 90%. We have a growing emphasis on urban agriculture, and that should be supported, but at the same time we should bear in mind that no city's feeding itself from urban agriculture. There isn't the space or the natural resources available. When we refer to rural transformation, we're talking about the increased productivity, incomes, diversification, equality, so we talk about gender equity, etc., opportunities for young people and better management of natural resources in rural areas. And urbanization does offer specific opportunities for rural people, and specifically for smallholders, to increase their incomes, to therefore invest in their own farms, to transform their operations from smaller subsistence-oriented farms to more productive, entrepreneurial and profitable businesses. But this is not something that just happens automatically. It has to be a deliberate policy choice. It requires specific investments, infrastructure, connecting rural areas and urban areas, not just hard infrastructure such as road and transport, but also institutional infrastructure, connecting rural organizations with political processes in cities, planning. Urban-rural inequality and inequality within urban areas and within rural areas is a very important piece of this puzzle. When we talk of rural-urban linkages, rural-urban linkages can only ever be mutually beneficial and poverty-reducing if they're equitable, if they're based on participation of rural people as well as urban people, the building of capacities, economic and political opportunities of rural as well as urban people. This is something that IFAD emphasizes strongly in the context of urban development. For example, when we talk about urban markets for smallholders, if rural people are not involved in planning decisions, don't have adequate information, then how do they ensure that they know what's happening in the markets, that they know what opportunities, that they can bargain to ensure they receive adequate prices, adequate conditions, etc. When we look at the global demographic picture, we see that in sub-Saharan Africa, there are around 60% of the population is under 25. We see that approximately 15 to 20 million young people are entering the labour market each year over the next decade and a half. The other area where we see the youth population continues to rise in absolute and proportional terms is South Asia. So the two regions with the highest incidence of poverty and hunger are also the two regions that have the most youthful populations. The scenarios and projections estimate that even if we're being extremely optimistic, urban sectors will be able to absorb perhaps 2/3 if we're being. Certainly rural areas and certainly smallholder farming, which we know is labour intensive, has particular benefits in terms of creating employment, will have to play a role. In sub-Saharan Africa, we're seeing urbanization, even though we still have about 60% of the population rural. But importantly, we're not really seeing structural transformation in sub-Saharan Africa. So we're seeing people move to cities, but we're not seeing the emergence of a modern agriculture or modern service sectors, and the employment opportunities are extremely limited for the young people who are moving to cities. They're competing for informal, low production jobs, and with more and more of them entering the labour market, this is going to be a real problem.